Arya Knox was serving scrambled eggs to a man who owned half of Chicago when she realized someone wanted him dead in the next 5 minutes. Miller's Diner never went quiet at 2:47 a.m. on a Friday night. The bars were closing, night shift workers needed coffee, and the city never truly slept. But for the last 3 minutes, nobody new had walked through that door. The street outside had gone completely still. Even the usual traffic had vanished like smoke. Then they started coming in. 4 men entered first, moving wrong. Their eyes measured corners and exits instead of looking for empty tables. They spread out with military precision, taking positions that covered the entire dining area. 4 more followed. Then 8 more came through the door in a steady stream. Arya kept pouring coffee and clearing plates, her hands steady even as she counted. 30 men. All armed, judging by the way their jackets hung. All focused on one thing. The man in booth 9. Grant Holloway sat with his back to the wall, a habit that had kept him breathing through 15 years of running Chicago's underworld. He had 2 guards with him, both trying to look relaxed and failing badly. The coffee in front of Grant had gone cold 20 minutes ago. This diner had been his safe space for months, a quiet place where one of America's most dangerous crime bosses could pretend to be normal for an hour. That illusion died when the last man walked in and locked the front door behind him. Grant's entire body went still. His eyes swept the room in one practiced motion, counting threats, calculating odds, measuring the distance to his weapon against 30 guns that were definitely faster. The math was brutal and simple. He wasn't walking out of here. His guards figured it out half a second later. Their hands moved toward their weapons, slow and careful, knowing it wouldn't matter. The leader of the group stepped forward, a cold smile spreading across his face. Expensive suit, dead eyes, and a tattoo barely visible above his collar. Arya recognized it instantly. Kozlov Syndicate. Russian mob. They'd been trying to take Chicago for 3 years, losing men and money every time they went up against Grant Holloway. Tonight was payback. Mr. Holloway, the man said, his accent thick and deliberate. No more running. Grant's guards went for their guns. 3 different shooters cut them down before the weapons cleared leather. The sound exploded through the small diner, deafening and final. Both guards collapsed and Grant stood alone against 30 killers. He didn't panic. He rose slowly from the booth, hands visible, his face showing nothing. Whatever he was feeling stayed locked behind eyes that had seen too much death to fear his own. "You want something," Grant said quietly. "Or I'd already be dead." The leader moved closer, confident now. "Account numbers. Shipping routes. Names of everyone you work with. You give us everything, maybe you die quick. Maybe we let you keep your dignity. And if I don't? Then you die screaming and we take it anyway." Grant actually smiled and the expression held no warmth whatsoever. "Guess we'll be here a while then." Arya watched from behind the counter, still holding a coffee pot, still playing the role of terrified waitress. None of them looked at her. She was invisible, just part of the background, no threat at all. They had no idea what they'd walked into. She'd left this life behind 5 years ago. Buried it so deep she thought it might actually stay dead. She'd taken a new name, a new history, a new existence built on normal things like rent payments and grocery shopping, and pretending the skills burned into her muscle memory didn't exist anymore. But 30 men were about to execute someone 10 feet away from her, and the person she used to be was clawing its way back to the surface. The leader raised his hand and Arya saw fingers tightening on triggers all around the room. 2 seconds. Maybe less. Her hand found the breaker panel behind the counter, hidden under a loose piece of trim. She'd memorized every exit, every weapon, every tactical advantage in this diner during her first shift. Old training never really faded. It just got quieter. She pulled the breaker hard. Darkness swallowed the diner whole. For exactly 3 seconds nobody moved. 30 confused killers frozen in place, waiting for emergency lights that should have kicked in but didn't. Arya had disabled them weeks ago without really knowing why. Instinct maybe. Or the part of her that never stopped preparing for war. In those 3 seconds she became someone else entirely. The first man went down silent, Arya's hand finding the nerve cluster in his neck that shut off consciousness like flipping a switch. She caught his weapon before it hit the ground, cleared it and moved to the next target. Her feet made no sound on the tile floor. Her breathing stayed controlled and even. She'd done this in darker places against worse odds. Someone shouted in Russian. Flashlight beams cut through the darkness, wild and desperate. They were looking in the wrong directions, trying to find Grant, assuming he was the threat. Arya dropped 2 more men before they understood what was happening. She used their confusion, their noise, the way they bunched together for safety. Every beam of light became a target marker. Every shout gave away a position. They were hunting blind while she owned the darkness. Grant figured it out fast. She felt him move, heard the distinct sound of someone who knew how to fight in chaos. He wasn't trying to escape. He was adapting, using the darkness the same way she was, taking down anyone who came close. They'd never met before tonight. Never trained together. Never spoke a single word. But they moved like 2 parts of the same weapon. A gunshot rang out, then another. Someone was shooting at shadows. The muzzle flashes gave away positions and Arya used each one. He could feel the numbers dropping. 30 became 20. 20 became 15. The Russians were panicking now, shooting at each other in the confusion, trying to regroup and failing. She took down 3 more in rapid succession, their flashlights clattering to the floor. Somewhere in the darkness, Grant was doing the same. She heard bodies hitting the ground, heard the wet sound of close combat, heard someone begging in broken English. Then silence. Complete, total silence except for the sound of 2 people breathing steady in the dark. Arya moved to the breaker panel and threw the power back on. Fluorescent lights flickered to life, harsh and revealing. 30 men lay scattered across the diner floor. Some were unconscious. Some wouldn't wake up. All of them were down. Grant Holloway stood in the center of the room, blood on his knuckles, his expensive suit torn in 3 places. He was staring at the carnage with something like disbelief on his face. Arya was already moving toward the back exit, stripping off her apron as she walked. "Wait," Grant said, his voice rough. She didn't wait. Couldn't wait. This was already too much exposure, too many witnesses, too many cameras that might have caught something. She'd broken her one rule by getting involved, and now she needed to disappear before the consequences caught up. She was through the kitchen and out the back door before Grant could say another word. "Before we continue, I want to take a quick moment to say something. If you're watching this at the start of a new year, I want you to know something important. You get to start fresh. Whatever weight you've been carrying, whatever mistakes you made, whatever pain you experienced, you don't have to bring all of that into this new chapter. This year is yours to write differently. You can choose new habits. You can choose better boundaries. You can choose to forgive yourself. You can choose to try again. From all of us at Kira's Love Stories, we're wishing you a year filled with growth, peace, and the courage to become who you're meant to be. Now let's get back to the story. The alley behind the diner was empty. She'd parked her car 3 blocks away, a habit from another life. She was inside it and moving before the first siren started wailing in the distance. The police would find 30 Russian mobsters and 0 answers. Grant would tell them nothing useful. And Arya Knox would vanish like she'd never existed. Except Grant Holloway wasn't the kind of man who let mysteries go unsolved. 3 days later, Arya was wiping down tables at a roadside bar outside St. Louis when he walked in. She'd known it was coming. Someone with Grant's resources and connections could find almost anyone, given enough time and motivation. She'd covered her tracks well, changed her name, paid cash for everything, avoided cameras and social media. But there were limits to how invisible one person could be. Grant sat down at the bar without saying a word. He didn't bring guards this time. Didn't bring threats or weapons or demands. He just ordered coffee and waited. Arya finished her shift. Served her last customers. Locked the front door after they left. Then she poured 2 cups of coffee and sat down across from him. "You shouldn't have come here," she said quietly. "You saved my life." His voice carried no anger, just statement of fact. "I needed to know who you are." "Nobody. Just a waitress who got lucky. Nobody doesn't move like that. Nobody doesn't disable 30 armed men in complete darkness." He studied her face, looking for cracks in her mask. "I did some research. Arya Knox started existing 5 years ago. Before that, nothing. No school records, no family, no job history. You're a ghost. Maybe I like it that way. Maybe you don't have a choice." Grant leaned forward, his voice dropping lower. "Someone inside my organization sold me out. Set up that whole thing at the diner. The war isn't over. They'll try again, and next time I might not have a guardian angel in a waitress uniform." Arya felt something cold settle in her chest. She'd suspected as much. 30 men didn't just show up at the exact right place and time without inside information. Someone close to Grant had betrayed him. "Not my problem," she said. "It became your problem when you stepped in." Grant's eyes were steady on hers. "They burned down the diner yesterday. 2 staff members died in the fire. They left a message spray painted on the wall outside. Legends fall. That message wasn't for me. It was for whoever interfered." The cold in her chest spread outward. She'd known the risks. Known that getting involved would paint a target on her back. But hearing it confirmed made it real in a way that threatened to crack through her carefully maintained control. "They found your apartment too," Grant continued softly. "Burned it 3 hours ago. You've got nothing left to go back to." Aria's hands tightened around her coffee cup. 5 years of building a normal life, gone in smoke and ash. The ghost she'd been trying to bury was the only thing left. "Why are you here?" she asked. "Because hiding never stops what's coming." Grant pulled out a phone and slid it across the table. "And because I'm offering you something better than running. Help me find who betrayed me. Help me end this war. Then we both walk away clean." "I don't do that work anymore." "You did it 3 nights ago." She had no answer for that. The person she'd been at the diner wasn't the person she'd been trying to become. But maybe that person had never really left. Maybe she'd just been waiting for a reason to come back. "I have one condition," Aria said finally. "When this is over, you disappear from my life. Completely. No contact, no favors, no debts. We walk away from each other and never look back." Done. He should have said no. Should have run as far and fast as possible. But Grant was right about one thing. Hiding never stopped what was coming. It just delayed the inevitable. "Tell me about your organization," she said. "Every person who knew you'd be at that diner. Every person who could have set this up." Grant smiled, and this time it almost looked genuine. "I have a place outside the city. Lake house, isolated, secure. We can talk there without worrying about who's listening." 2 hours later, Aria stood on the deck of a massive house overlooking a dark stretch of water. The place was exactly what she'd expected. Expensive, isolated, probably stocked with enough weapons and security systems to fight off a small army. Grant Holloway didn't do anything halfway. He brought out 2 glasses of whiskey and handed her one. She didn't drink it. "Start talking," she said. Grant was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the water. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a weight she hadn't heard before. "My organization started 15 years ago. Not because I wanted power or money. Because someone I loved was killed by people who thought they were untouchable." He paused, jaw tight. "I spent 3 years learning how they operated. Who they worked with. Where their money came from. Then I spent the next 12 years taking everything from them. The empire I built was never about ambition. It was about revenge." Aria heard the truth in his words. Recognized the same darkness that had driven her into the life she'd left behind. People didn't end up in their world by accident. They were pushed there by trauma and pain and the kind of rage that never really faded. "Your turn," Grant said quietly. "Who were you before 5 years ago?" She could have lied. Should have lied. But something about this moment, this place, this strange alliance made her tell the truth. "Black site operative. Government program that officially doesn't exist. They trained us young, used us for missions nobody could know about, then erased us when we knew too much." The words came out flat, emotionless. She'd practiced that tone until feeling couldn't touch it. "I was supposed to die on my last assignment. Decided to disappear instead. Been running ever since. Until 3 nights ago." "Until 3 nights ago," she agreed. Grant turned to face her fully. "I have 43 people in my inner circle. 7 of them knew I'd be at that diner. 5 of those 7 have been with me since the beginning. The other 2 are newer, but both have saved my life at least once." He pulled out his phone and showed her photos. "I need you to figure out which one sold me out. Because I can't see it and that's going to get me killed." Aria studied each face, committing details to memory. Already her mind was working through scenarios, probabilities, methods of investigation. This was what she'd been built for, even if she'd tried to forget. "I'll need access to everything," she said. "Financial records, communications, movement patterns, personal histories. If there's a traitor, they left traces. People always do. Whatever you need." They spent the next 4 days buried in information. Aria worked through the data with surgical focus, looking for the small inconsistencies that marked betrayal. Grant provided context, explaining relationships and history, filling in gaps that raw data couldn't show. On the 5th day she found it. Logan Mercer. Grant's most trusted lieutenant, with him from the very beginning. 15 years of loyalty, dozens of operations, countless moments where Logan could have betrayed him and didn't. But 3 months ago Logan's spending patterns had changed. Small things carefully hidden. Cash deposits that didn't match known income. Payments to offshore accounts. Communication with encrypted numbers that appeared and disappeared. "It's Logan," Arya said, spreading the evidence across the table. Grant's face went completely blank. For a long moment he just stared at the papers, not moving, barely breathing. When he finally spoke, his voice was hollow. "He was there when my sister died. Helped me build everything from nothing. I trusted him with my life. He's been selling you out for 3 months. The diner was just the biggest move." Arya pointed to a series of transactions. "He's being paid by the Kozlov syndicate. Has been feeding them information on your operations, your security, your movements. They own him now." Grant's hands curled into fists. The rage in his eyes was controlled but absolute. "Where is he?" "That's the problem." Arya pulled up a map on her laptop. "He knows you're looking. He's already moved against you. There's a warehouse operation scheduled for tonight. 12 of your men are supposed to be there for a pickup. Logan set it up. It's a trap. Definitely a trap." Grant reached for his phone. Arya caught his wrist before he could dial. "If you call it off, Logan knows we found him. He'll disappear and the Kozlov syndicate will send someone else. We need to control this." She met his eyes steadily. "Let me go instead." "That's suicide." "So is the diner." "I'm still here." They argued for 20 minutes. Grant wanted to send backup, wanted to give her support, wanted to do anything except let her walk into an ambush alone. But Arya had learned a long time ago that backup just meant more people to worry about. She worked best alone, in the dark, against impossible odds. She went to the warehouse at midnight. The building was exactly what she'd expected. Abandoned factory on the south side, multiple entry points, plenty of shadows. Perfect place for an ambush. She counted at least 20 men positioned inside, all carrying automatic weapons. They were waiting for Grant's people to walk in and die. Arya gave them something else to think about. She cut the power to the building first, plunging it into darkness. Then she triggered the fire alarm. Then she started taking down guards one by one, using the chaos and confusion to stay invisible. The Russians panicked fast, shooting at shadows, trying to regroup in the dark. She was clearing the 3rd floor when gunfire erupted from the front entrance. Heavy, sustained, professional. Grant had come anyway, bringing what was left of his security team. Everything went wrong in the next 30 seconds. The Kozlov syndicate had more men than she'd counted. Way more. They poured out of hidden positions, cutting down Grant's team with overwhelming firepower. She heard men screaming, heard bodies hitting concrete, heard Grant shouting orders that nobody could follow. Arya moved without thinking. She dropped from the 3rd floor using a fire escape, hit the ground running, and charged straight into the middle of the firefight. Bullets tore through the air around her. She felt one graze her shoulder, hot and sharp, but didn't stop moving. Grant was pinned behind a concrete barrier, 3 of his men already down. The rest were scattered, trying to fall back to vehicles that were already burning. This wasn't a trap. This was a slaughter. She reached Grant and dragged him toward cover. A bullet punched through her side just below her ribs. The pain was distant, unimportant. She returned fire, dropping 2 shooters, giving Grant precious seconds to move. "Fall back," she shouted over the noise. "Everyone out now." They ran through smoke and gunfire, leaving bodies and blood behind. Grant's entire team was gone. 8 men who'd trusted him, who'd followed him into this warehouse. All dead because Logan Mercer had sold them out. They made it to Arya's car. She threw Grant into the passenger seat and drove with one hand pressed against her bleeding side. The wound wasn't fatal, but it was bad. She could feel blood soaking through her shirt, warm and steady. "Hospital," Grant said, his voice tight with something that might have been fear. "No hospitals. They'll be watching." She took a corner too fast, tires screaming. "Back to the lake house. I can handle it there." He barely made it. The blood loss was catching up fast, making her vision blur and her hands shake. Grant had to help her inside, had to half carry her to the couch. He had basic medical supplies, enough to clean and pack the wound. His hands were steady as he worked, even though his face was pale. "You saved my life," he said quietly. "Again. We're even now." Her voice came out weaker than she wanted. "Logan's still out there." "Forget Logan. You're bleeding out on my couch. I'll live. Done worse." She forced herself to focus through the pain. "Your organization is gone, Grant. Everyone you had is dead. Logan took it all." He finished bandaging her wound and sat back, his expression empty. For the first time since she'd met him, Grant Holloway looked defeated. His empire, his revenge, his life's work, all of it destroyed by someone he'd trusted completely. "So what now?" he asked. Arya closed her eyes, fighting through exhaustion and blood loss. "Now we finish it. Find Logan. End this war. Like we agreed. I don't have an army anymore. I don't have resources or backup or anything except this house." His voice was hollow. "It's just us. Then us is enough." She spent 3 days recovering while Grant worked his contacts. Logan had gone to ground, but he'd made one mistake. He'd taken something personal. Grant's daughter, Claire. She was estranged, hadn't spoken to her father in 5 years, wanted nothing to do with his criminal empire. Logan grabbed her anyway, insurance against Grant coming after him. The message came on the 4th day. Simple and brutal. "Come alone to the construction site on Madison. Top floor. Midnight. Come with backup and she dies." Grant stared at the message for a long time. "He wants me to walk in there and die. That's exactly what he wants." Arya was on her feet now, the wound in her side mostly healed. She'd pushed through worse injuries before. "So we give him what he wants. I'm not using my daughter as bait. I'm not saying you should. I'm saying you walk in exactly like he expects. And I'll already be there." The construction site was a half-finished high-rise, 40 stories of steel and concrete and empty air. Perfect place for an execution. Lots of space, lots of echo, nowhere to hide. Logan had chosen well. Arya arrived 2 hours early. She climbed the outside of the building in complete darkness, using maintenance equipment and raw determination. By the time Grant was scheduled to arrive, she'd mapped every floor, every position, every potential advantage. Logan had 20 men spread through the top 3 floors. Claire was zip-tied to a chair on the 40th floor, terrified but unharmed. Logan stood next to her, confident and calm, a gun in his hand. Grant arrived at midnight exactly, walking in through the main entrance like he'd been told. No weapons visible. No backup. Just a man walking toward his own execution to save someone he loved. Logan smiled when Grant emerged onto the 40th floor. "I was wondering if you'd actually show." "Let her go, Logan. This is between us. Everything's always been between us. 15 years I followed you, supported you, built your empire with my own hands." Logan's voice was bitter, angry. "And you never saw me. Never understood that I wanted more than being your shadow. So you sold me out for money? I sold you out for respect. The Kozlov Syndicate offered me something you never did. A chance to lead. To build my own empire instead of serving yours." Grant took a step forward. 3 guns immediately pointed at his chest. "Don't," Logan said softly. "I will kill her. Then I'll kill you. Then I'll take everything you ever built and burn it down." Arya moved in the shadows above them, positioning herself on a steel beam that crossed the open floor. She could see everything from up here. Every angle. Every threat. Logan had made the same mistake the Russians made at the diner. He wasn't watching the empty air. She dropped silently onto the closest guard, taking him down before he could shout. His weapon clattered across the concrete floor. Logan spun toward the sound, his gun coming up. Arya was already moving. She killed 2 more guards in rapid succession, using speed and darkness and the height advantage. The rest opened fire wildly, shooting at shadows and each other. Grant hit the floor, crawling toward his daughter. Logan backed toward the edge of the building, his gun pointed at Claire. "Stop or she dies." Arya stopped. 30 feet separated them. Too far to close the distance before he could pull the trigger. "You can't win this," Logan said, his voice shaking now. "I planned for everything. Every contingency. You're trapped up here with me." "Not trapped," Arya said quietly. "Exactly where I want to be." She shot out the temporary lighting. Darkness swallowed the floor whole. Logan fired blindly, the muzzle flash giving away his position. Arya moved like water, silent and certain. She heard him scrambling, heard his breathing getting faster, heard the panic setting in. She found him at the edge of the building, his back against empty air. "Please," he whispered. "Please don't. You killed 8 men tonight. Burned down a diner and killed 2 innocent people. Betrayed someone who trusted you." Her voice carried no emotion. "You made your choices." Logan lunged at her, desperate and wild. She sidestepped smoothly. His momentum carried him forward. He screamed once as he fell, the sound cutting off suddenly when he hit the ground 40 stories below. Arya turned the lights back on. Grant was cutting his daughter free, his hands shaking. Claire was crying, holding onto her father like he was the only solid thing in the world. They'd been estranged for 5 years, but none of that mattered now. "It's over," Arya said quietly. "Logan's gone. The threat's gone." Grant looked at her over his daughter's shoulder, his eyes wet. "Thank you. We had a deal. This ends it." 3 weeks later, federal agents raided every Kozlov syndicate location in Chicago. They found enough evidence to dismantle the entire organization, send dozens of people to prison, and close operations that had been running for a decade. The investigation had been anonymous, the tips perfect and untraceable. Arya had made sure of it. Grant dissolved what remained of his empire quietly. Paid out his remaining people, closed his accounts, walked away from 15 years of blood and revenge. He reconnected with his daughter, started the slow work of becoming someone other than a crime boss. Arya watched from a distance, making sure he stayed safe until everything was truly finished. Then she disappeared again, taking a new name, a new city, a new attempt at normal life. She was 2 states away when the message came through on a phone she'd thought was untraceable. "You're being recalled. Report to coordinates below within 48 hours. This is not optional." Her old life. The people who'd trained her, used her, tried to erase her. They'd found her again. After 5 years of hiding, after everything she'd done to stay dead, they wanted her back. She stared at the message for a long time. Thought about running. Thought about fighting. Thought about all the ways this would end badly no matter what she chose. Her phone rang. Grant's number. "I got a message," she said when she answered. "So did I. Someone's asking questions about what happened in Chicago. Digging into things that should stay buried." His voice was calm, steady. "Whatever comes next, you don't face it alone. This isn't your fight. You made it my fight when you saved my life. Twice. Pause. I'm coming with you. We deal with it together." Arya felt something unfamiliar in her chest. Not quite hope. Not quite trust. Something newer and more fragile. For 5 years she'd been alone, running from shadows, building walls that nobody could cross. Grant Holloway had walked through those walls like they were paper. "Together," she said finally. She sent back a single message to the coordinates. Coming. But not alone. Whatever happened next, whatever her old life threw at them, they'd face it the same way they'd faced everything else. In the dark, against impossible odds, 2 people who'd learned that sometimes the only way out was through. The war wasn't over. But for the first time in 5 years, Arya wasn't running from it. She was ready. If you made it to the end of this story, here are 3 lessons you can take with you today. Your past doesn't define your future. Arya and Grant were both shaped by trauma and violence. They both did things they weren't proud of. But they made a choice to walk away and build something different. Listen, your history influences you, but it doesn't have to control your destiny. No matter what you've been through or what you've done, you can always choose a different path. Your past is behind you. Your future is still unwritten. True strength is knowing when to act. Arya could have stayed invisible in that diner. She could have kept her head down and let violence happen around her. But she chose to step up when it mattered most, even though it cost her everything she'd built. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is intervene when others need you, even when it disrupts your peace. Real strength isn't about staying safe. It's about doing what's right when the moment demands it. You don't have to face your battles alone. This is the biggest lesson from this story. For 5 years, Arya ran alone. She fought alone. She survived alone. But it wasn't until she let Grant stand beside her that she actually started living instead of just surviving. Whatever you're facing right now, past trauma, current struggles, uncertain futures, You don't have to carry it by yourself. The strength to face tomorrow doesn't just come from who you are. It comes from who stands beside you when everything falls apart. Together is always more powerful than alone. So remember, your past doesn't own you, stepping up takes courage, and you were never meant to fight your battles alone. If you like this story, please subscribe for more and drop a comment telling me what you think about this story. I'll see you in the next story.